When you're drawing pets or animals, do you find it a little bit difficult to build in the dimension and the life into the eyes with the colour pencils? If you do, stick around because I might just be able to help. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. If we haven't met yet, I'm Teresa and I'm a pet portrait artist creating tutorials from my studio on the edge of Dartmoor to help you develop your colour pencil artwork. So follow me to my drawing board and I'll take you through my process for drawing this little dog's eye in real time. I'm drawing on Fabriano Artistico hot press paper, but you can use any paper that you want to use. I'm using polychromos pencils. I've got one white luminance pencil from Caran d'Ache in there, but you could use a white polychromos pencil if you wanted to. That's absolutely fine. And the only other thing that I'm going to be using is a kneadable eraser, but any eraser will do because it's just for erasing out the graphite lines. If you want to follow along with me, I've got a free line drawing along with the original reference photograph and a list of the pencils that I'm going to be using, and I'll leave a link to how you can get all that for free in the description below. So grab your pencils, follow me over to the drawing board and I'll take you through how we drew this eye step by step. Okay, let's have a look at getting some colour into this dog's eye. It's quite large. I've done it quite large so that I can explain some of the processes as I go, and that hopefully you can see it quite well on the video. I've got quite a strong graphite line down there at the minute, so I'm just going to take my kneadable eraser and dab into this a little bit. Now, it doesn't matter whether you dab the kneadable eraser on or very lightly drag it over the top of the work, whatever works for you and your paper. And obviously it depends on how strong you've put your graphite lines down as well. But for me, I can just dab it off, and I'm just taking it off a little bit. I still want to be able to see it, but I just want to take off any of that loose graphite and just knock the lines back a little bit. That will do. And then what I'm going to do is take a sharp dark brown pencil. This is the dark sepia pencil that I'm using. And I'm just going to find the outlines, the really dark outlines on the eye. So this is right on the edge of the eye. And I'm going to work along the edge of that. I don't want to press on hard. I want to keep this pencil pressure really light. This is the edge of the eyeball. And I'm sort of working backwards and forwards a little bit as I work around the line, and I find that that is really useful to keep almost like a bit of a broken line so that it looks a little bit more natural when I blend it out into the area next to it. So let's just bring that around there. I've got a little bit that's coming over here, haven't I? And it just sort of follows under the eye there. Let's just have a look at that. Yeah, just follows under the eye there. So even though the line drawing's down here, I'm still looking at that reference photograph just to make sure that I understand what the lines are, that I'm happy that the lines that are going down are, you know, in the right place. Because a line drawing's all well and good, but it is possible to pick up wrong lines on a line drawing. So there we go, that will do for the minute. The other thing that I am going to put in actually is there's a very, very dark line, isn't there, right at the side of this pupil. So I'm just going to put that in as well. And the other thing that I'm going to do with this pencil whilst I've got it is very gently just work along. This bit across the top here is where the highlight sits. So I'm just going to work, just dot in the pencil along the base of that that highlight, just so that we know that for the minute at least we want to keep this area quite white. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that one stage further. I'm going to just dab in that little line that's there. I'm going to take that one stage further because just as an extra little bit of security, take a white pencil and putting the white base layer down in here just acts like a security, so that if I want to go in and dab the pigment back out with the eraser later on, it means that the pigment isn't likely to stain the paper because I've got this nice base layer underneath here now, so I'll be able to erase it back out to this white layer. So I'm not looking to try and make it white, I'm just looking to put a base layer down that I will add some colour into afterwards. I'm going to work light to dark. So I'm going to start with a nice light base layer in this eye. I'm just taking out these graphite lines just a little bit more, and I'm just going to work on the iris and the pupil for a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a base layer, and apart from this area where we've just put the white in, and I'm going to stay out of that for the minute, I'm going to use a really light warm grey pencil. This is warm grey one from the Polychromos, and I'm going to get a base layer all the way over, including in here as well. It doesn't matter, it'll just be easier to get a base layer everywhere. So I'm going to put a base layer all the way around the side of this pupil. I'm just using circular strokes to get this base layer in. I'm using circular strokes, and I'm also looking to get a nice even coverage. I don't want to see any pencil lines in my eye at this stage. I just want a nice even coverage. Filling that area in. I can also, even though this is going to go really dark, I'll take this base layer into this area as well. It just makes it easier so that we know where we're going. We're just going everywhere with it. And you might be thinking, well, why am I putting a really warm base layer into what is going to become the pupil? Because I can see, certainly on the screen that I'm looking at it on, I can see some blue in there. But it's fine, I can still use this as a base layer, and I'll bring the blue in over the top afterwards, and this will just disappear anyway. It's gone down as a base layer to help those pencils sort of move around and slip over the surface of the paper, but the colour will disappear because that's going to go really, really dark. So just to make it easy, you could obviously go in with a cold grey base layer, but just to make it easy, I'm going to go in with the warm grey base layer, and then it's just easy. We've literally put it everywhere apart from that little bit at the top there. So I'm working light to dark. So the next thing that I'm going to do is look to see what other light colours I can see in here, and then start working down through the darker colours. There's obviously quite a bit of yellow, a lovely sort of mustard yellow ochre colour in this area. So for me, I'm going to use the light yellow ochre from the Polychromos range, but any mustard colour that you've got will work fine. And again, I'm going to use circular strokes so that I don't get pencil lines showing. And I'm going to bring these circular strokes all the way around the bottom of the eye. It doesn't really need me to go up there because that's going to go so dark. If you do go up there, that's fine, doesn't matter, but it's not really essential. When I get to this little bit here, which is the bottom of the pupil, and I've still got a little bit on the line drawing there, I'm just going to work the pencil backwards and forwards, coming around the shape of the eye, almost sort of following this curve here on the side of the pupil, because I want this yellow to really gently drift in to what's going to be the pupil in there. And then I can just go back to the circular strokes. I've got this quite flat end on the end of the pencil there. That's what I call a chisel tip. That's the name that I give to it, and it means that I've got quite a broad pencil stroke going down on the paper. And that helps with this even coverage, this nice even coverage. That flat bit on the end of the pencil there and the circular strokes gives me a nice even coverage. And what I want to do is build the whole of this eye up with glazes. You can see I've still got the grey coming through underneath. I want to build the whole of the eye up with glazes so that I let that light, and by glaze what I mean is a really light layer of the colour, which lets the other layers show through underneath, and that's going to let the light and the glassiness come through the eye, which is going to help it look realistic. Okay, so we've got some of the mustard yellow in there. I want to bring in a little bit of orange colour into this eye as well, And again, I'm using quite a desaturated orange colour. I'm not going to go in with bright orange, just not for this particular, photograph that I'm looking at. Sometimes it can help to put a nice bright bit of orange in there. But for this one, I'm going to go in with quite a muted brown orange. And this is the burnt ochre from the Polychromos. And I'm going to start to work from the edge of the eye, and very gently just use curved strokes to bring some of this orange, it's like an orange brown colour, isn't it really? Just curve it around and bring it in to the eye from the edge. Right on the edge, I'll go back to my little circular strokes because I want to really concentrate that pencil right on the edge, but then I'll drag it in so that I get a nice seamless blend into the yellow. So let's just take it around the side of the eye, around the bottom of the eye. I'm going to bring it on this side as well. Just use those circular strokes. I just want to add a little bit of orange colour into the yellow in places. And it's particularly around the edges where it's going to go a bit more brown. I can see a bit of a transition from the yellow to the orange before it gets into the brown. So there we go. Just got a little bit of that burnt ochre in the side of this eye. And I can always go back and add more. Don't have to, get everything into the right place with one layer. It's going to take a few layers. Okay, so I've got the yellow and I've got some orange in there, and I want to sort of go slightly darker again, so I'm going to move to a slightly darker pencil again. This is the burnt sienna. It's a bit more of an orange brown colour rather than an orange colour, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to work from the outside of the eye towards the middle of the eye, curving it around the back using those curved strokes again. And this time I'm not taking it quite as far as I took the burnt ochre. So I've got the transition from the yellow to the orange to the brown. I'm going to use circular strokes right on the base again, where it is right on the edge of the eye, just because I want to concentrate the pencil there just a little bit. And that will probably do for the minute with the burnt sienna. Just soften it in that top corner. There we go. I will be coming back to the outer edge of this iris and I will be darkening that down. But before I do that, I'm going to start to think about bringing in this dark bit of the pupil in here as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a blue in with the dark sepia and then probably the black to get this really, really dark in the middle here. Like I said earlier, there's a little bit of blue coming in, so I've used a light, warm, grey one base layer. But now I'm going to bring in a bit of blue before I go in with the really dark colours. This is indanthrene blue. You can use any dark blue that you've got. You could use your dark indigo, it doesn't matter. Anything that you've got that, is a nice dark blue. But I'm going to start to bring some of this into this pupil. I'm using little circular strokes along the bottom of this highlight just to keep a nice neat line, and then I'm going to curve the pencil out in the direction that this pupil is coming around and down in. Just curving it around. It's quite blue, but it's going to go quite black, so I'm not worried that it's quite blue in there. I'm going to get rid of that. Got a little bit of that in there. And whilst I've got this pencil in my hand, I'm also going to bring in some little circular strokes into this highlight at the top as well. So I'm just looking for those patterns. Really light. I don't want, this is obviously a highlight, so I don't want to make this really strong. And it's always better to do a little bit and then go back and have a look at it and, you know, add more if you need to. But I've got a little bit of the blue in there. And then I'm going to come back with my dark sepia, and the first thing I'm going to do is darken down the side of this eye. So I'm going to get a nice dark bit of colour running along the edge of the pupil. I'm just following around with curve strokes in the direction that this eye is curving around in, but keeping those pencil strokes light. I want a nice soft transition on the edge of the dark bit, on the edge of the brown. Just bringing a little bit of that in. It's a little bit sort of strong and cold at the minute, so what I will do is come back with a lighter, a sort of warmer brown pencil to bring some colour down here. But I just wanted to get some dark bit right on the top there, and then also into this pupil in the middle here. And it's not going anywhere near as dark as I need it to be. I've still got, you know, a lot of layers to put in. Building it up in glazes, like I said, which are really light layers, so that I can keep the lovely glassiness coming through. That shine on the eye. I'm just following around the shapes. There's a slightly lighter bit there, isn't there? It's a bit big at the minute, but I'll go back and I'll refine that and sort of close that up and, you know, adjust that. The other thing that I'm going to do whilst I've got this dark sepia in my hand, on the bottom of a highlight, there's always its own, almost like a little shadow. So I'm just going to work around this and around the side, bringing that in. There we go, just with those backwards and forwards pencil strokes. And it still looks really, really flat at the minute, doesn't it? It looks really flat. We need to get a lot more dimension in there, but we're building it up slowly, working on a little bit at a time, and we'll get there. We'll get that dimension in that over the coming layers. Okay, I've got a bit of the pupil in there now. It still needs to be dragged out on the bottom, and it obviously needs to be made darker and it needs to be blended in, but it's in place. I've plotted it in place. So what I want to do now is start to add a little bit more dimension to the eye. At the minute, it's a very, very flat looking bit of colour on the page, isn't it? And I need to start to bring in the dimension, and I'm going to do that by adding some darker values and adding some contrast in, which is the sort of relationship between the lights and the dark. So I'm going to bring some contrast in and bring the darker values in. I said I was going to use a slightly warmer brown around here, and I also need to bring in a warmer brown on this side as well. So I'm going to use the walnut brown from the Polychromos range, but you could use any brown, dark brown, quite a warm brown I would say, because we've got these lovely oranges and ochre colours in here. I'm just going to stay out of the highlight again for the minute. I'm just going to concentrate on getting some of this walnut brown around the back of the eye. So I'm starting with the pencil on the outer edge of the iris where it meets the eyelid at the top up here, and right on the edge down here, and I'm going to very gently curve the pencil in, lifting the pencil off at the end of the pencil stroke, just making little hatched lines that lift off at the end so that I get a nice tapered bit on the end of the pencil. And that tapering is going to help me to very gently blend the colour, this dark colour, into the oranges and the yellows that we've got in there. Following around the direction, the curve of the eye. And this bit here is a good sort of indication of the direction that the eye's coming around in. So that's the sort of, you know, angle that I'm bringing the curve around in. If I get to the edge or right on the edge, I can use circular strokes because I really want a nice concentration of the brown there. But then I'll work back in with these curved strokes. And it could be that you've got to turn your piece of paper. That might make it a lot easier to get the curved strokes in. Just going to bring some of this pencil around this side as well, and actually go into that dark sepia that we had and start to drag the colour down the side of this pupil. So still following the direction of the pupil. And you can see the warm sort of walnut colour, the warm brown colour is going down, but I've still got the other colours showing through. I'm still building it up with a glaze, even though it's a dark colour. I don't want to go in really, really heavy-handed because it's a dark colour. Still using it in a really light way. And I'm not looking to get the colour on the paper anywhere near as dark as it's going to be in the finished portrait. I'm not looking to use the full force of the pencil to get a really dark application of the colour with one layer. I want to still think about those glazes. And I'm just using circular strokes right on the edge. I'm going to use the walnut to just very gently drag out from the edge of this pupil as well. And it's still got to go darker, the pupil's got to go darker. It's darkening down on the edge down there. That will do for the minute. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on that. That will do for the minute. What I'm going to do is take a kneadable eraser and very gently just bring a couple of lighter bits back into this side of the eye and just take that brown back just a little bit, and at the same time just dab in down there as well. So I've got some of the brown pencils in, the dark brown pencil, and I'm going to come back to my my burnt ochre and my light yellow ochre to just blend what's in the middle there just a little bit. So I'm going to use my burnt ochre first and very gently just work it over the top of the walnut. And let that burnt ochre pencil just fade out and into the lighter areas. And then I'm going to use my light yellow ochre and just blend over the lighter areas. And I can still go into where the darker the dark sepia or the the walnut brown was, go into those darker areas. And as I put this colour down, the eye will just start to become a little bit more vibrant, which is what I want. I want this colour to just show through, just using circular strokes. Making the colours a little bit more vibrant and also just blending those darker browns a little bit as well. There we go. You can see that eye's just become a little bit more vibrant. There we go. I'm going to bring in a black pencil now, and I'm going to really darken down this bit up the top here. Make this nice and dark right right on the side of the pupil up here. And this bit across the top is going to blend into the upper eyelid. So I'm not worried about finishing it right on the, you know, the edge. I don't need to neaten that edge up just yet. I want to bring the pencil down the side of the eye there, really dark up there, and also darken in and around this pupil and under this highlight. So I'm just going to use little circular strokes to just work around and under the highlight for a start, making it lovely and dark. Don't want to put the black everywhere. Keeping the black towards the middle really dark bits, and then it's going to fade out with the brown colours. Again, I'm just going to top up under this highlight. I don't want to put too much black in. If I put too much black in, there is a chance that it's going to become quite flat looking. So I don't want to do that. I will just take the black around the edge of this eye, all the way around the edge. Now I'm not coming in too far with the black, and I'm just using little circular strokes. I'm keeping the black quite concentrated towards the outer edge, but not bringing it in too far. You can see I'm not really moving too far off the outer edge of this iris. Just little circular strokes. I'm going to do the same around this little bit as well. Just little circular strokes right on the bottom. I'm just doing this whilst I've got the black in my hand, because I need to put a nice dark edge around the iris. That's really going to help with the dimension of the eyeball. It's really going to help bring in this 3D feel to the eyeball. There we go. And then I'm going to come back with my walnut brown again and just pick up that black, flicking the pencil back into the middle again. To just soften the edge of the black out and drag it into a very, very soft transition into the rest of the eye. And I don't have to worry about getting this absolutely spot on. There's still more layers that I can go back and, you know, make adjustments. So at no point do I have to say to myself, this is the layer that I've got to get it absolutely right, or my drawing will just be ruined if I don't get it right, because I've got a lot of opportunity. I've got so many layers that I can put down. This paper can take a lot of layers. So I've got the opportunity to go back and adjust things. I don't have to look at getting things right with just one layer. So I've got the dark bit, and I've just softened the edge around there, and also just dragged the pupil out just a little bit, and just bringing that out and around. Let's have a look at this highlight on the top, because the highlight is actually going to help to make this eye look 3D. At the minute it looks quite flat with the highlight there. I'm going back in with my light sort of mustard yellow colour, and I'm going to bring some of this colour around the top of the eye here, just in this top right hand corner of the highlight. And I'm also going to come back in with this blue and add a little bit more blue on the top. I can take the blue all the way up to the top of the eye because that's going to go quite dark. I'm using this blue really lightly to just bring in a few scribbles, really, to bring in a little bit of texture into the highlight. Perhaps make it look like clouds that are, you know, it's probably clouds that are reflecting in the eye. So just bringing in a little bit of that texture really lightly. Here we go. I'm going to bring some of the burnt ochre in. This is that orange brown colour to tint that yellow. Take that over the top. And I'm also going to bring in a little bit of this burnt sienna and just working from the top of the eyelid down and into this highlight and just curving it around. Dotting it in, that's all I can get in there. Now as I'm working on this highlight, this top of this eye is going to just sort of very gently disappear into the eyelid. So I'm going to get some base layer down on this eyelid so that as I'm working on this highlight, I can also start to work the eye because the dark bit of the eye's just got to go a little bit higher. So I'm back to my, my warm grey one and I'm going to get a little bit of base layer. Now I'm just using circular strokes again. I'm using circular strokes because I'm confident that I can put the base layer down without seeing any pencil marks. If you're worried that you can't get a nice even coverage, then perhaps you could just use directional strokes. And at least then the directional strokes will be working around the eye in the direction, obviously, that the fur's coming around the eye, but this is going to be covered up, so I'm just going to go in with the circular strokes. Got that chisel tip on the end of the pencil again. I'm also holding the pencil quite far back and I'm holding it tipped over a little bit, and that also helps to achieve a nice even base layer. There we go. So I can't see any pencil strokes in that I've just put down. Just to take this this eyelid one stage further, I'm going to get a little bit of pink in there because obviously there's a bit of pink. I'm working light to dark again, and there's a bit of pink coming through the browns that I can see. So this is cinnamon, and I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to use an even pressure, tipping the pencil over on the side. I'm using a nice even base layer. Just bring in some of this cinnamon colour over the top of this eye. I'm not taking it too far, I'm just taking it across the edge, over the edge, so that I've got something to blend the top of this eye into, this eyelid into. There we go, that will do. That's all I need to do. I just needed to get a little bit there to blend. I just find it's easier when I'm working on the edge of a shape to get the sort of the underlayers, at the very least the base layers, into the area next to it, so that I've got something to work out into, to blend out into. So I'm going to use my dark sepia, and I'm going to bring the dark sepia down and into this highlight. I'm using little circular strokes right on the edge, right at the top. But as I move into the highlight, my strokes are going to start to sort of follow the curve of the eye again. So I'm bringing little directional strokes down, but then as I get to right to the edge, I'm just going to move back to circular strokes across the top of this eye. And I'm going to start to blend the top of the eye up towards and out and onto that eyelid at the top. Darken down just on the top of the highlight again with the dark sepia, and then with circular strokes really gently just let that pencil drift off and above the top of this eye, because it's going to go really quite dark as the eye drifts into the eyelid. There isn't really going to be a nice defined edge at the top of the eye. There's always a nice defined edge at the bottom of the dog's eye, but at the top, because of the shadows and the fur, the eye just sort of blends from one to the other. It just sort of drifts from one to the other. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this dark sepia up past the eye, and there's a line on the line drawing there. That's where I'm going up to. So I've put a line on the line drawing for you. You're not alone with making the decision as to where to take that line up. We're going to make that decision together. And I'm just starting to work the dark sepia off the top of this eye and down the edge of that upper eyelid. There we go. So I've started to get the top of the eye starting to take shape a little bit now. I'm also just going to work back into this highlight, because that was the bit that we were originally working on, wasn't it? I'm going to bring in a little bit of darker bits here and there just to put some pattern in the eye. Soften out the edge of the pupil a little bit as well. Just looking for those shapes. I'm going to come back to burnt sienna, and around here I'm going to bring in a little bit more of the burnt sienna colour and just take this burnt sienna over and up and into that upper eyelid. Here we go. I'm going to come back with the yellow again and make sure I've got a little bit of colour in this top. That just needs topping up a little bit. And I'm also going to come back with the blue as well. I'm going to come back with this indanthrene blue and just go over some of these dark blue bits in the eye. I'm going to bring the dark sepia in again and darken this down a little bit more on the top of this eye, because I need to make the top of the highlight just a little bit darker again. So I'm going to work over the top. I've still got more work to do on blending the top of that eyelid, but I'm just going to take a white pencil, any white pencil will do, and I'm going to just very gently blend out and into this highlight. Just going to help to soften the edges. Take the highlight up and into the eye just a little bit more. Take the lighter part up and into the eye just a little bit more. I'm using a luminance pencil for this, but you could use a polychromos white. It would work quite nicely for you. Obviously, different papers will take pencils differently, so it's going to depend, you know, to a certain extent on what paper you're working on. There we go. Just softened the highlight just a little bit. Bring a little bit of light into the eye to just help soften out some transitions. Not looking to make things white using the white pencil, just looking to lift areas here and there. Soften out those transitions, there we go. Okay. Obviously at the minute, the white of the eye is far too white. It's nowhere near that white on the dog's eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a couple of colours. I'm just getting those ready. I'm going to bring in, I want to bring in sort of like a pink colour, bit of a lilac colour, quite a blue pink colour around the front, and obviously bring this little bit in the back. I'm going to bring in a warm grey one at the back and put a base layer at the back there. I'm also going to use the same base layer at the front, but once I've got that in, I'm then going to mix a blue and a pink colour. This is quite a cold pink colour. This is actually light magenta from the polychromos, and this is light ultramarine. And I find that they are really, really useful colours for mixing that sort of lavender lilac colour that I'm going to need. So I'm going to use my warm grey one first of all and just get this base layer in at the back. Now if you've got colours like Oyster from the Derwent Lightfast, or even pink white or something like that, you know, that could make a nice base layer colour as well. A really sort of cool, quite an icy sort of pink colour. But I'm just going to mix these colours with what I've got, what I'm using with the polychromos. So I've got the base layer in there, and already to my mind it's starting to look a little bit better because it's taken out that real sort of stark white that's there. I'm going to use the dark sepia just to bring in some of the sections of this eye. So again, it's on the line drawing, but I just want to bring some of the darker bits in. And you may have already gone over yours, but I'm just going to go over those so that I know where I am with it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the pink first of all, so this is the light magenta, and bring in a little bit of pink, so right at the bottom here, and you can see how lightly I'm using it. I'm really, really using it lightly. If you don't have this pink, you could just go in with a bit of cinnamon colour. You know, this is like I say, it's a lovely cool pink colour, and I find it really, really useful. But if you don't have that, you know, any pink colour that you've got. I'm also going to bring it into this bit in the corner here. Just use some circular strokes and get that even application. So as soon as I want the even application, I tip my pencil over a little bit, holding it further back, tipping it over to just get that lovely, even, smooth coverage. There we go. Bring a little bit up there as well. I will just bring in the cinnamon. I didn't mention the cinnamon, but I'll also just bring in the cinnamon right in the corner, because in the corner down here we've got a bit more of a browny pink colour, haven't we? So I'll just bring that right into the corner there. There we go. Bring a little bit more base there. I'm not going to go out too far away from the eye because I really just wanted to demonstrate how to build the glassy eyes up. But if you want more eye tutorials, I've got quite a few eye tutorials, either as part of full projects or just as like feature focused tutorials over on my Patreon channels. So pop over there and have a look at that, and you'll find lots of inspiration and projects that, you know, I take you through step by step in real time with the name of the pencil on the screen. Let's have a look at bringing in a little bit of this light ultramarine that I was talking about, and it's going to go slightly darker right in the corner here. So using those circular strokes to get that even coverage again. Keeping the pencil towards the left hand side of this little shape, although there is some blue that's on this side, but most of it is sort of on the left hand side there. I'm also going to bring a little bit of blue just underneath around here. There we go, starting to shape that eye a little bit. This is the burnt sienna, and I'm going to bring the burnt sienna into the corner of this eye. I'm not going to pay too much attention to the corner of the eye, but I want to obviously get the corner in there so that, you know, the eye finishes nicely. I'm also going to use the burnt sienna to bring in some colour on the outside of this eye here. Now, I can use circular strokes right on the edge of the eye to get some of this lovely orange fur colour in. And let's just take that up there as well. Bring a little bit of the burnt sienna just down the corner down there as well. And then this is the walnut brown, and I'm using little circular strokes, just concentrating that colour on the left hand side. Little circular strokes. Right along that edge, just shaping the corner of the eye, and sometimes it might just need a little tap out into the rest of the eye in the direction that the eye's going, just curving around. Working the pencil off the edge of the eye on this side as well, just to soften out the edge of that eye. There's no really hard transitions. I think I said it earlier, didn't I? On the top of the eye, it softens out. We've got some slightly crisper lines on the bottom, but at the top we've just got lovely soft transitions as it transitions out. And that's because, you know, you've got the shadows, you've got the fur on the top of the eye, you might have eyelashes. We're going to have the lovely soft transitions, and that is going to help create a more realistic looking eye, having those soft transitions. I'm just working around these dark bits right in the corner of the eye there. And any area that, you know, sort of you can see I'm leaving the lines there. Any areas that I leave, I'm just leaving them. I leave them to at the start when I'm plotting them in, and I can always go back then and shape them and close them up as I need to. But, you know, I leave a slightly bigger line to start with. And that's so that I make sure that I don't sort of, you know, slip with the pencil and go in and cover them up. It's just easier to leave them a little bit bigger and then go back and you know, close them up or do what you want to do with it afterwards, adjust it. The edge of this eye is not super crisp on the corner here, so I'm just working the pencil along to just break up the edge of that eye there, right in the corner there. I'm going to come back with the cinnamon to work into these slightly darker bits, slightly lighter bits, sorry. And I'm going to use my base layer and very gently blend out away from the eye, just to bring in a little bit more base layer. Like I say, I'm not going to take this too far, but I am going to put a bit of an edge around the eye. So just bringing a bit of base layer in underneath. So I've got something to work in again. Now, because I'm not going to take this too much further, this time I'm just creating like a nice sort of neat finish. So I'm using the base layer in the direction that the fur's coming around in. Same on the top, just curving that pencil around, just getting quite a sketchy base layer. I'm not, you know, this is just a little study. I'm not worried about getting it nice and refined on the edge. I'm going to use the grey pencil, and where I've put this pink and the blue in, I'm just going to go in and blend that. And you can see just using little circular strokes to soften and blend, it's just blended that quite nicely, because I put that pencil down really lightly with light pressure. It means I can go in and I can just blend it. Same around here as well. Just go in and blend it. I'm going to come back to the dark sepia and just add a little bit more depth around the bottom of this eye here. Very gently soften that eyelid into the white of the eye there. And then just expand out this line underneath. It's a little bit sketchy at the minute, but I'll go in and work on that, blend it out. Okay, we're nearly there with it, aren't we? We're getting there with it. I'm just taking the cinnamon and I'm just adding a base layer over the eye. Just taking that fur around in the direction that the fur's actually going in as it travels around the eye. And, you know, perhaps using little circular strokes as well, just to soften it. And then I'm going to work in with the burnt sienna to start with. And this time I'm going to switch to little directional strokes, just taking these pencils up and off the eye in the direction that I can see the fur is going in. So in this corner here, as we come down the side of the eye, it's starting to come down towards the nose. So I'm going to use the burnt sienna to just very gently drag the fur off towards the nose. And I use like directional strokes, following the fur, and sort of, so for here it's curving down towards the nose, and then on the top it's going to curve over the top. But as I get closer to the eye, I'll just go back in and just reinforce a little bit more depth and a bit more intensity with circular strokes. And just bring the circular strokes in, and then as I move away from the eye again, I'll just very gently sort of curve it out and bring it out in the direction that I want it to go. I'm going to do the same up here, working out across the top of the eye. I just want to soften this bit on the top now to show you this bit soften and to just refine this highlight, and then we're nearly there with it. So I'm just going to work out in the direction. So I'm using like almost like oval strokes. I am keeping my pencil on the paper, so they are sort of, you know, circle oval strokes, but that they're curving around in the direction that I want the upper eyelid to go, or the fur on the upper eyelid to go. Bringing it down this side. Just adding a little bit in the corner there. It's just going to be a little bit darker in the corner of that eye. So just concentrating a little bit at the back there. There we go. And then I'm going to use the, I think I'm going to use the dark sepia, and I might just then blend it with the walnut brown. So let me get the dark sepia. I'll put my other pencils down, and then this is going to go a little bit darker here, just over the top of the eye. So again, working out in the direction that I can see the fur's going, and I do just want to reinforce down the side of that eye as well. Just make that a little bit darker down the side of the eye. And then I'm going to extend this dark a bit up. So if we've got this little bit here, and if we just sort of do an imaginary, I'm just going to put it on here, but it's more and more like an imaginary line there. You don't need to sketch that in. I'm just sketching in so that you can see where I'm working. I'm going to take the dark sepia all the way up to that line that I've just sketched in. I've sketched it in lightly so that I can blend it and blur it, but you don't need to sketch it in. I just wanted to explain where I was sort of taking the shadow on the top of the eye up to. And bringing it in to the side of this eye here. Nice and dark on the side. It's these dark bits on the side that are really going to make that eye look 3D. So just concentrating that pencil right in this corner, darkening down in this corner. Just concentrating the pencil over and over where I need to make that pencil just a little bit more intense. And I'm just looking to break up the light area at the bottom of this eye. There's quite a light area at the bottom of this eye. So just looking to break that up a little bit. I'm using the dark sepia to do this. If I was going to carry on and work out into the rest of the fur, I can see this starts to get a little bit red now, so I'd probably, think about bringing in something like the Caput Mortuum Violet, or even the Caput Mortuum as well, to to start to bring those red tones in that I can see in the rest of the fur. But I'm just doing it with the dark sepia because I'm not going to be moving out and away and into the rest of the fur. Just want to break into this light at the bottom. It's quite a light colour, quite a big space of light pencil. This pink. So that is probably pretty much all I'm going to want to do with this. Let's just have a look at this this highlight again. Let's come back to this blue and just reinforce some of these blue shadows that are in here. And when you blend, or you bring in slightly darker areas into another part of the drawing, sometimes you do have to go back and adjust and top up and perhaps refine things as well. So just going back and doing that. Come back in with the dark sepia and add a little bit into the blue areas. And the top of that eye just gets really blended in to the eyelid. And here we go. Here's my finished study of the dog's eye. But that's it. I really hope that it's been useful to see the process that I use when I bring the glassiness and the life into the eyes in my colour pencil portraits. If you want to see more projects, whether just feature focus or whether full projects like this, you'll find plenty over on my Patreon channel. The projects over there are in real time. They include a line drawing, a reference photograph, a supply list, and all the new projects that are added there every month include the name of the pencil that I'm using on the screen at all times, so you can see which colour I'm using at any point in the tutorial. So really hope that that has been useful. If you've enjoyed the project, then do hit that like button for me, and also let me know in the comments if you found it useful, or if you've got any questions, then put those in the comments as well. So I'll leave that there for now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.